Welcome back to Heal Me with Chocolate, the show where cravings meet their healthier match. I'm your host, Dr. Beata Lerman, the founder of Sinless Treats Chocolate, and today we're entering the sweet arena for a no-holds-barred, face-off. Stevia versus monk fruit versus erythritol, and how they hold up in dark chocolate. We're not gonna talk about chemical, non-nutritive sweeteners in this podcast. I think we gave them enough explanations in the previous ones. So go check those out if you want to know what I think about dextrose and sucralose and aspartame and maltodextrin. But today we would actually talk about something that nature gave us and how can we create foods with those sweeteners. We will talk taste, texture, blood sugar impact, health concerns, and even digestive drama. If you ever picked up a sugar-free chocolate bar and wondered, what really is this? This episode is your golden ticket. So let's set the stage with some basics. Sugar-free chocolate doesn't mean flavor-free. Doesn't mean it's bitter. But how you get that sweetness without sugar makes all the difference. The most common sugar substitute in healthy chocolates are stevia, which is derived from the leaves of Stevia rebaudiana plant. It's 200 to 300 times sweeter than sugar, 0 calories, and non-glycemic. The other option is monk fruit, made from the mangroside, a fruit that looks like a little melon that's grown in Southeast Asia. And it's also intensely sweet, but clean tasting. Also 0 glycemic and calorie-free. Erythritol is a sugar alcohol found in fermented fruit and corn. It's about 70% as sweet as sugar and sometimes has a cooling effect. Maybe we also will touch on allulose a little bit, but let's observe how these three sweeteners and their unique characteristics influence how chocolate tastes, melts, and make you feel. Let's talk flavor. Stevia, while it's super sweet, some people notice a licorice or bitter aftertaste, especially at higher concentration. Blending it with other sweeteners or chocolate with high fat content can mask that. Think of it like cilantro. Some people adore it, and others say it tastes like soap. So we talked many times that the way stevia is processed matters, because most people are familiar with stevia as a white powder sold at the shelves of a grocery store. And while there is the rebaudiana extract, in the ingredients it's listed as Reb B extract. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's an extract. That means that plant, hopefully they started as a plant, was put through an intense processing where they took out this molecule, the Reb B molecule, and then they mixed it up with something else because, of course, when you isolate the sweetness molecule from something that's 200 to 300 times sweeter than sugar, that further refines it to be even sweeter. When I look at that, my approach is take it in the exact form as nature gave it to you. So when we make our chocolate with stevia, we do not isolate the rebaudiana extract. We just take the whole plant, with the fibers, with the chlorophyll, with everything. And it's still pretty sweet. But what it does, that gets rid of that lingering aftertaste and licorice taste. The pure stevia, when you chew it on a leaf, or if we pulse the leaves in the Vitamix blender, it actually reminds a lot of matcha. Smells very, very similar to a high-end matcha tea from Japan and gives a very clean, although overpoweringly sweet taste. monk fruit, on the other hand, is generally considered the smoothest and most sugar-like in taste. It has no bitter aftertaste, like ultra-processed stevia does, making it a crowd favorite. It blends particularly well with cacao butter and nut-based chocolates. Very often it is sold in the combination with erythritol, just because it's 320 times sweeter than sugar, and we've talked about it before. It's very hard to measure the appropriate sweetness when it's served straight up. Now, erythritol is mildly sweet with a clean finish. It often comes with a cooling sensation on the tongue, resembling that of mint or menthol. This can clash with delicate chocolate notes if it's done too much, which is why if we use erythritol, it's our second by abundance ingredient. So we use inulin in bulk with a touch of erythritol, and then just about, I would say, 3 teaspoons of stevia if we make 10 kilos of chocolate. For 22 pounds of chocolate, we put just tiny bit of stevia just because it is that sweet. So in some sugar-free chocolate using erythritol, it can clash with the delicate chocolate notes, especially if the cacao sort is not very chocolatey. Though some people like it in peppermint or winter flavors because it further accentuates the coolness. We've done blind tasting with our Sinless Treats chocolate lovers community. In our combination sweetener, when we have inulin and stevia with a tiny touch of erythritol, consistently wins in both mouthfeel and aftertaste. But other combinations often yield similar results, like monk fruit and allulose or stevia and erythritol. Currently, we see chocolate that use pure allulose or pure erythritol. So if I have to think about the allulose one, there is Gold's. The pure erythritol is used in Lacanta chocolate. Although there is a nuance when you cook with sugar alternatives. The temperature at which you cook also affects the taste. So adding erythritol to Lacanta chocolate while it's warm, which is when chocolate is being crushed, when cacao beans are being crushed, the friction warms things up. And so in the warmer temperature, erythritol is almost undetectable, so the sweetness is much less. The moment it cools, it becomes 2 to 3 times sweeter. So I'm not a big fan of Lacanta chocolate, even though I tried it before I went and invented Sinless Treats chocolate for my own cancer recovery and clean eating, because the erythritol-based chocolate to me is overpoweringly sweet. And you can really do damage with too much of something good. So let's talk about glycemic and metabolic impact. Here's where things get serious. So stevia in monk fruit, because they're plants and because they're not carbohydrates, as we said, one is ribana and the other one is the mongroside, they're both non-glycemic, meaning they don't spike blood sugar or insulin at all. That's great news for diabetics or anybody managing insulin resistance, or just biohackers like me who don't want the additional insulin spikes because it does nothing good to health. Studies show stevia may even improve insulin sensitivity over time. If we go to erythritol, it also has glycemic index of 0 and is excreted unchanged in the urine, meaning it doesn't ferment in the gut or impact blood sugar, and essentially comes into our body and out of our body unchanged. This makes it ideal for keto diet followers and low-carb lifestyle. When we talk about allulose, what we call the newest kid on the block, it's a real sugar. It's actually a carb, but it's a rare sugar, and it's non-glycemic because the way that molecule is oriented It's essentially backward fructose molecule. And there is no enzyme in our body that can cut it into 2 pyruvate molecules to put it into our metabolic cycle to make the energy from or store it as fat. So just because of that structural difference, allulose is not usable for our body, non-glycemic, but because it has the same molecule as a carbohydrate, as a sugar, it provides a smooth sweetness and even has some added fiber benefits. On the topic of sugar alcohols, I want to insert a word of caution on blends and chocolates containing maltitol, which is a cousin of erythritol from the sugar alcohol family. It's often used in cheaper sugar-free chocolates, but it has a higher glycemic index, usually between 35 to 52. And if you heard my previous podcast, we said that table sugar, the sucrose, has the glycemic index of 65, so everything is being compared to that as the base level value. So maltitol, once again, it's a cheaper alternative for the cheaper sugar-free chocolates. It has a glycemic index of 35 to 52, so nearly that of the sugar, and can spike the blood sugar level. So always, always, always check the label. And a word of caution, when you do check a label, see what the first ingredient is, because that is what tells the tale. So let's talk tummy. Erythritol is the most gut-friendly of all the other sugar alcohols. It doesn't cause the bloating or digestive discomfort that xylitol or sorbitol might cause. However, that's not always the truth. And I've mentioned this many times before. The source of the ingredient matters. Because I have plenty of people coming through the doors of Sinless Treats Chocolate Factory who say, oh, erythritol, it makes my stomach upset. And that can happen because it's a sugar alcohol that is a product of fermentation of fruits or corn. So I've said this once again many times before, that in the United States, majority of erythritol is made out of fermenting corn and corn products. We put massive amounts of pesticides and herbicides and other chemicals on that corn. They accumulate in all parts of the plants, and they carry over to all of the products that made out of that corn. I have seen it. There is a huge difference even in taste to erythritol that, for example, is made in European Union with a much higher safety and food standards. In European Union, they make it from fruits. Specifically, I like the one that's made in France from organic apples and pears, and that is the erythritol that we use in small amounts in our chocolate. It has drastically different taste profile to the corn-made erythritol, and actually not a single person who consumes Sinless Treats chocolate bars with the erythritol made from organic apples and pears ever complained to us about digestive upsets. And you probably have seen me eating massive amount of Sinless Treats chocolate on camera to show the regulations of blood sugar levels. And there's a particular video on our Instagram where I eat 12 bonbons in under 15 minutes. And then the camera follows me for the rest of the day and follows my blood sugar levels. And you see me feeling pretty great and with no elevation in blood sugar. So I can definitely attest for the quality of erythritol made from the fruits and not from the corn. So erythritol, most gut-friendly, doesn't cause bloating, or at least if it's high quality, it shouldn't. What about stevia and monk fruit? They generally don't affect digestion negatively, unless combined with sugar alcohol like maltitol or xylitol or sorbitol in a very high concentrations. And then the effect of stevia or monk fruit, especially if they are minimally processed, cannot be separated from the known digestive distress effects of the sugar alcohols, especially in the high concentration. The catch is that everyone's microbiome is different, and that depends on the foods you eat outside of consuming sweets and chocolate. If you're new to sugar-free sweets, start slow. A full bar of erythritol or xylitol, maltitol sweetened chocolate could leave a sensitive person feeling bubbly in all the wrong ways. If I have to give a pro tip, try chocolate with added prebiotic fiber like inulin or chicory root. It helps balance the gut reaction and support healthy digestion. So let's put them on the scoreboard, shall we? And our verticals are the name of the sweetener, the calories, the glycemic index, aftertaste, gut tolerance, and what's its best in. Because people who come to Sinless Treats Factory often ask me, can I bake with this? Can I put this in my drinks? Can I put it in my cocktails? So let's start with stevia. It has 0 calories and 0 glycemic index. If it's ultra processed and comes as ribana extract mixed with dextrose, maltodextrin, or sucralose, it can have a bitter aftertaste sometimes. It has a high gut tolerance, and it is best in baked goods. It can blend really well in high cacao content bars. Monk fruit as well, 0 calorie, 0 glycemic index. Aftertaste is very clean. Gut tolerance is high. Fit best in size chocolate products as truffles, nut butters, and chocolate blends. Erythritol has 0.2 calories per gram, so it does carry a little bit of caloric load. So 5 grams of erythritol would have 1 calorie. It also have a glycemic index of 0. Aftertaste presents as a cooling effect, especially if it's corn-made. Gut tolerance is moderate to high, depending on people's individual microbiome. And it's best in peppermint bars and keto snacks. And finally, the allulose, our newest rare sugar. It is a high caloric value. It's 0.4 calories per gram. So only 2.5 grams of allulose would equal to 1 calorie. It also is non-glycemic, so 0 glycemic index. Aftertaste is very clean, just like you would expect from sugar. Gut tolerance is high if you ease into it. And at best in chewy bites and brownie-style texture. If you want to know a trade secret, allulose, out of all the sugar alternatives, is the only one that can caramelize. So you can make, essentially, if you're making a keto-friendly, for example, creme brulee, and you want that crispy crust, instead of sugar, you can put allulose on top and torch it, and it would give you the same crunchy crust without any kind of glycemic load. As a note, when you look at ingredients, which I always encourage, allulose isn't always labeled as sweetener, but shows up in newer products. As a chocolate maker, we always have this dilemma, choosing the right sweetener that is like casting the lead in a play. You need a combination of taste, chemistry, and performance. That's why at Sinless Treats we custom blend chicory inulin, stevia, and fruit-based erythritol with soluble fiber and organic cacao to hit the sweet spot, literally and nutritionally. It's about indulgence with intention, because the sweetness works in harmony with real chocolate. And you get something truly magical, the treats that supports your health goals while delights your senses. So thank you so much for joining us today in this sugar-free Smackdown. Tell us in the comments if you use any of these sweeteners. Which one is your favorite for which application and why? Whether you are a stevia fan, a monk fruit loyalist, or a curious erythritol explorer, now you know how to decode your chocolate labels with confidence. In the meantime, if you want to know what we use, how and where, check out our website, sinlesstreatschocolate.com, and learn our ingredients, our mission, vision, and values. In the next episode, we'll be diving into timing. When should you eat chocolate for maximum benefit? Morning, noon, or night? Until then, stay sweet, stay wise, and keep healing with one bite at a time.